What if the worst thing that ever happened to you turned out to be the reason you were standing in exactly the right place to save someone else? I lost my job, my routine, and my sense of purpose all at once. 3 weeks later, that loss put me in a parking lot at the exact moment a stranger needed someone, and I understood why everything had fallen apart. The job loss had been brutal. Not just the income, the identity. I'd been my job for a long time, and when it was suddenly gone, I lost my routine, my purpose, my sense of who I was when I wasn't doing the thing I'd done for years. I fell into a gray, aimless stretch, drifting through days with no structure, no reason to be anywhere at any particular time, feeling like the floor had dropped out of my whole life. One of the small, awful things about losing your routine is that you end up in random places at random times. The structure that used to put you in specific places at specific hours is gone, and you wander, running errands at odd times, sitting in coffee shops in the middle of workdays, existing in the unstructured drift of a person whose life has lost its shape. 3 weeks into this drift, I was in a parking lot in the middle of a weekday afternoon, a time I'd never have been there in my old life, doing some aimless errand to fill the empty hours. And, because I was there, at that exact unlikely time, I was the one who saw it. A man, a few cars over, collapsed. Just went down beside his car, alone, in a parking lot in the middle of a weekday when it was nearly empty. A medical emergency, sudden and severe, and there was almost no one around. Because it was the middle of a workday, the time when parking lots are empty, the time when I'd never normally have been there, but I was there. Because I'd lost my job and my routine and my place in the structured world, I was standing in an empty parking lot at an hour I'd never normally be there, and I was the one who saw a stranger collapse with no one else around to see it. I ran to him. I called emergency services immediately. I did what I could. I knew some basic first aid, enough to help, enough to keep the situation from worsening in the critical minutes. I stayed with him, kept him as stable as I could, flagged down the few other people around to help, directed the ambulance when it came. The emergency was severe, the kind where the minutes before help arrives are the difference between outcomes. He survived. The paramedics indicated that those first minutes, a person being there immediately, calling for help, doing the basic right things, had mattered enormously. In an empty parking lot at an empty hour, the margin between someone being there and no one being there was the margin of his life. And someone was there. Me. Because I'd lost everything that would normally have kept me away. I sat in my car afterward, shaking with adrenaline, and something reorganized itself in my mind. For 3 weeks I'd been drowning in the meaninglessness of my collapsed life. No job, no purpose, no reason to be anywhere. And it had just turned out that the collapse had put me in the exact right place, at the exact right moment to save a man's life. The aimless drift I'd been cursing had carried me precisely to where I was needed. I'm not going to claim the universe arranged my job loss to save a stranger. I don't know how any of that works, but I know what it did to me. It taught me that the worst thing that ever happened to me and the reason I was in the right place can be the same thing, that a collapse can be a redirection, that losing your structure can put you exactly where you turn out to be needed. It pulled me out of my gray drift, honestly, because I understood, sitting in that parking lot, that my life still had the capacity to matter enormously, even, especially, in its shapeless, fallen apart state. I just saved a man's life specifically because my life had fallen apart. That's not nothing. That changed how I saw the whole stretch of loss. I rebuilt eventually. New job, new routine, new purpose. But I carried the parking lot with me. The reminder that the worst thing that ever happened to me put me exactly where a stranger needed me, and that you never know what your collapse is positioning you to do. The job loss felt like the end of my usefulness. It turned out to be the reason I was standing in the right place to save a life. Sometimes the floor drops out, so you'll be standing somewhere else entirely, somewhere you turn out to be exactly what someone needs.